Hello, I'm Sam Lohman, president of the Art Association, a Swiss nonprofit encouraging peaceful engagement through art in all its forms. Today, I'm honored to welcome Eli Cohen, executive creative director and head of print at Concept Arts in Los Angeles, California. Eli has helped shape the visual storytelling of some of the world's most recognizable films, including, among others, Aviator, Batman Begins, Beetlejuice, Cruella, The Dark Knight, Dune, Elvis, F1, Get Rich, Die Trying, Jason Bourne, Jurassic Park, King Richard, Little Mermaid, Mission Impossible, Superman, Top Gun Maverick, and more and more. In 2022, Eli was invited to serve in the prestigious position of Clio Entertainment Juror in recognition of his leadership in crafting art that travels across borders. Eli's craft distills entire stories into a single image that speaks instantly across cultures, languages, and invites shared emotions, empathy, and oneness. Eli, welcome to TAA Conversations on Art and Peace.
Thank you, Sam. Really excited to be with you. Appreciate you having me.
Well, then we're going to jump right into the question. First of all, what experiences in your early career formation shaped your approach to visual storytelling at Concept Arts?
I think early on, working, on many projects, I started to realize that the most successful posters and work that I was doing wasn't just visually interesting, but it had emotional resonance that really connected with an audience. It was trying to make people feel something, feel a connection to the poster, feel a connection to the film. And so I started to really seek out those kinds of ideas in the posters and realizing, like, if you really want to have something that feels powerful, it has to be more than just the surface level. You have to really, you really have to kind of get deep into, what you're trying to say. And so, that's something that we really try and do at Concept Arts. That starts from, the history of the kinds of work that we've done at Concept. The owner, Aaron Michelson, and his parents, Ron and Lucinda, have been doing this. They started early on with like Monty Python um, and have a legacy of doing work that isn't just commercial, but has has an interesting point of view and something to say, and something that goes beyond, just the commerce of it. Something that really kind of blends that art and commerce, and so that's something that everyone we work with, I think we all really trying to do work that goes beyond just the surface level.
If your portfolio is amazing, and in fact, it's an excellent example of how your art, through the posters that you create, encourage peaceful engagement by virtue of the viewers that see your art and then, of course, attend the event that you're directing them to. So, what principles guide you when you design art for such a global audience?
Um, Really, it's trying to really understand deeply what you're working with. Like, we're lucky to be able to work on, we're making art for other art. You're working with filmmakers, studios each project has a point of view. It has a real, it has a something it's trying to say, and whatever the genre is, whether that's, an action movie, a drama, you have a story that has at the heart of it, characters and people, and we're trying to figure out a way to boil that down into something that will engage with an audience. We're trying to do the same thing in our posters. How do we create something that connects with people, that people will stop? It has to be something that visually, obviously, is it will stop people in their tracks and gain attention, especially nowadays when people are so used to, um, I think we have more visuals coming at us day to day than probably ever in the history of humanity with social media and phones in everybody's hand. You're competing for attention and trying to get people to stop and really feel something. Um, and so that, it's really trying to start with that, getting people to feel something, not just having, a loud image that is going to, beat everything through color or boldness, but really starting with the emotion and getting people to connect with a story or a character in some way.
So, I've seen your posters, and not until I made the preparatory work for this interview did I make the connection with your firm, yourself, and those posters. But what makes your posters have this sort of human feeling about them? They somehow connect, and so can you give us a little bit more information about how your posters seem to be infused with this ability to connect the viewer? Is there some more that you can share with us that leads to the success in being able to accomplish that?
Yeah, I mean, really, a lot of it is really trying to think in a way and design in a way that each poster should really have a point of view and an idea. I think we never try and sit down and just, every movie that you have photography that comes with it, you have what's called unit photographers, and you get thousands and thousands and thousands of images. You have the frames of the movie, and it's so easy to just sit down and say, okay, that's a cool image. That would be a cool poster. Let's just do that. But that's the wrong approach. Usually what we work on, either when I'm designing or when our team, I'm directing them in a project, it's like, think about the idea first. What are we trying to communicate? What is the kind of essence of not just the movie or show, but each poster should have a purpose for being in a presentation. When we're working on these movies, we go through many, many, many variations, before we get to the final one. But I always try and tell our team, each poster should really serve a purpose and have a reason for being in that presentation, whether that's really a point of view of connecting with, the main character, or whether it's trying to show a sense of place or a sense of time, or really trying to share an emotion of some kind, and each one, and there's graphic design reasons too. Like there, sometimes not shouting everything at an audience and having a quieter image that invites you in to really kind of take your time with it, or speak a little softer with the imagery and the typography, is a better way to get people feeling like what you're making is for them, and it's created by people, and it's human, and it's really
Well, I think, first of all, it must be, well, you're a seasoned professional, but I think one might be a little intimidated to walk into a project that you walk into, just by virtue of the character, the caliber, and the notoriety, and so on and so forth, of the various different stakeholders and players. But it seems that that moment of brilliance must happen when you detach, you synthesize, and you do what you do. You create the masterpiece, which may be, it's obviously tethered to the project, but it brings something more uh, by virtue of the poster that you create. It either brings everything together, or whatever your process is, it has an impact that oftentimes obviously is synergistic with the movie, but it can be distinct from the movie. It's brilliant. Uh, uh, it's art by any definition, and of course, it's your specialized form of art which I imagine takes a lot of courage because you're virtually walking into a room with artists and you're presenting your work. There must be a little bit of a moment of vulnerability, but of course, it's your experience on the job that gives you the confidence to say, you've asked me to do this, now let me do it. And
Hmm.
this is what I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
will work.
there's nothing scarier than starting a project and having a blank, blank white page and something that you know is a big deal. Yeah, and they're counting on you to do something special, and it can be paralyzing. Um, but I think that the solution a lot of times to creating something great is to just start and do a lot of just make a lot to make something good. Sometimes you just have to get going and start iterating and start just trying to see what excites you as the creator of whatever you're doing. And also on our team, I think that there's nothing better than starting to get into a project and sharing it with some of your colleagues and seeing what they're doing, inspiring each other. And if somebody else says, "Oh, that is cool. That is I'm excited for that. That inspires me to do, what I'm doing." That's kind of, the reason a lot of us designers get into this stuff. We want to see the excitement in the people around us and what we're making for each other.
Could you give us some examples where you connect the or you synthesize the impact of the movie from your perspective uh, into a poster and perhaps give us some examples of the movies that come to mind where that process took place?
Sure. I mean, one of the first posters that I designed that kind of went out into the world in a big way was for Batman Begins. And at that time, the previous Batman films were um, big blockbuster, glossy, kind of Hollywood, cartoony. They were great. But for Batman Begins, you had Christopher Nolan doing a more grounded, more human, more realistic kind of version of Batman. So the Batman Begins teaser poster was the first image out for that, and it was Batman silhouette, dark, brooding against clouds, and the real kind of intention there was to show that Batman has some emotions, and it's a superhero story, but a human story. Um, and it was a very much in contrast to the kinds of superhero images that you saw at that time. Get Rich or Die Trying was another one that was about a rapper, um, gang violence, and I think the most unexpected thing to see on a poster, you have this main character from the back holding a baby, and um, I think something like that really showed like this is a human emotional story. This is a person with a family. This is a person who has a reason for really wanting to make his life better. And so I think that's a really good example of showing the emotional power in one image. You could have easily done a cliche gangster rapper image that kind of played into stereotypes, but we wanted to really kind of make it a universal an emotional kind of introduction into a character dealing with real issues and wanting to make his life better.
And that's
Um,
that that image of the this very macho image, if you will, the
mhm,
tattoo juxtaposed with this baby is a message that I think would travel extremely well throughout the world. The what you captured there, this human aspect came through so well in a poetic, romantic, and very beautiful way.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, recently, in the poster for the new Superman movie, um, that whole campaign and the film itself, I think, really tried to make hope and positivity cool again. The line throughout that whole campaign is look up, and you have Superman with this bright light looking up, bright colors. It's kind of, if you look at early on in my career, Batman Begins, dark, brooding, emotional, intensity. I think Superman now, however many years later, 25, 20 years later, is kind of I think, a reaction to a lot of the um, fear and turmoil and angst and kind of um, those kinds of emotions that are out there everywhere.
Here's an
And
example of
here's an example of like, okay, no, we can have some hope and some positivity, and that's what movies can give you. And so that's what that poster was trying to do, really bring back that feeling of, hey, hope is cool.
and I want to focus on the role you play in that process. You're talking about the message because
Hmm.
artists have the discretion to communicate whatever they want to communicate through their art. And it can be war, it can be peace. It could be the absence of war, it could be peace. It's your discretion in terms of the message you want to send. And here's an example of a message of hope, which is very positive. I don't think anybody would argue with that. So I would recognize you, your team, Concept Art, and the role that you're playing in facilitating that process and spreading that throughout the world through your art, the poster, and of course, the connection between the poster, the movie, and the experience and the message that the viewers receive when they go to the movie itself. So it's
Yeah, I mean, to
lovely.
be to be totally honest, we're not ever trying to add a political message into our posters, or that is not our role. But what we are trying to do is create a connection to characters and story in a real, authentic way.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, we're amplifying or kind of really trying to narrow in on whatever the message or the story, the point of view of that film is. So it's not up to us to really decide what that point of view is, but I do think any act of connection to those emotions or to that story does create a sense of really empathy and connection between people. So um, I think just trying to tell those emotional stories and get past the surface level on any project, um, is important. I mean, we've done movies that are war films. Like 1917 was a beautiful, really interesting film about World War One. Um, and on that, really trying to create something beautiful and evocative, and that really kind of pulled you into that story in kind of a modern way. It wasn't about the war of the film; it was about the human emotion and connecting with those characters in that story and in that crisis. And so, we do horror films, we do war films, we do action films, we do dramas, but each one it's really about stepping outside of yourself and kind of connecting to people through those stories.
Eli, that brings me to the core question that I often ask. In fact, I always ask, and that is, do you believe that art can influence peace?
Absolutely. In thinking about what you and your organization do and how it connects to what we do. I was thinking just a lot about, for me growing up, like, as a kid in the 80s and the 90s, my art was really movies and going in and connecting with, a story that kind of took me outside of my own head and really into the world of somebody else. Um, and I think, the first step in any kind of piece is that empathy and understanding of somebody else's story. And I think great, entertainment can do that. We can really, when I sit in a movie theater, I think what I love about it most is, like, I come out of that theater and I was living somebody else's story. I was feeling somebody else's, emotions, and I was really engaged and empathizing with, whatever that was, with an audience of people, and all kind of sharing, putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes. And so, for us, we're trying to do that in our own small way with the posters, with the marketing, with the advertising for this, and trying to kind of take whatever that is, that promise of that story, and then trying to figure out and boil that down into, what is an image, what is a copy line, what is a logo, how does that all come together to signal to people what they're in for, and kind of trying to connect with them on the streets, on their phone, on wherever it is, and say, hey, this is, check this out. This is a story that you can connect with, or a poster that can make you feel some kind of emotion and connection to something that might be different from your life, might be something, um, interesting for you. So, that's what I love about it, and I do think that's really important.
And consistent with the Art Association mission to encourage peaceful engagement through art, this process that you just so eloquently described takes place every time an individual views your poster and sits in the audience in whatever picture that you are associated with. It's a gathering, and it's around a peaceful exercise. And that's the beginning, a shared experience of oneness. And what message would you share with TAA's international community of artists for peace?
Every piece of work, everything that you do, if you're an artist, if you love art, um, that act of creating something that is meant to connect with other people, or experiencing something that you're connecting with that's made by someone else, is a chance to really, put yourself in other people's shoes, see a point of view that opens your mind in some way. Um, and that can happen anywhere. I mean, I'm working in movie poster design, but whether that's, something you're seeing, nowadays on social media, I love stories that put me into the perspective of somebody else. And I think that's what great art, great design does. It puts you in someone else's shoes, and really, kind of makes the world a closer place. It's a big place, but great art kind of makes it a smaller place, because you can really, experience something that you wouldn't ordinarily get to. So that's what I love about it.
Eli, thank you for taking us behind the creative process that gives life to some of the world's most powerful visual stories. Your posters carry a message of shared humanity, crossing borders, and speaking beyond language, culture, and background. Through them, we recognize that art can create a sense of oneness, quietly inviting audiences around the world to enter a story, to feel something together, and to reflect on what connects us rather than what divides us. Eli, it's been a privilege to speak with you and to celebrate the power of conscious design to bring people closer together. On behalf of the TAA and its international community of artists for peace, thank you for being part of TAA Conversations on Art and Peace. And to our viewers, until next time, may peace continue to guide your creative journey. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you so much, Sam. Pleasure to be with you.